Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me to learn about HR automation and specifically how we're using robotics in HR here at Navient. My name is Tricia Shields, and I'm the Vice President of Human Resources. Just to give a little bit of background, I've been with Navient for about 13 years, and we've been automating our data, our documents, and our processes for about the last 10 years. Today, I'd like to share with you how our automation journey began and where we've taken it from some of those initial stages. I'll be sharing an example of how we use robotics in HR and share other potential HR applications for robotics. We'll be talking about exceptions and challenges that we've encountered along the way during our implementations. You'll get an opportunity to actually see our HR robot in action. And then we can finish up with any questions that you might have. To give a bit of context, Navient is an 80-employee company, and we have employees spread out over 15 states and provinces. At Navient, we are really focused on our candidate and employee experience. And what that means is that we need to ensure that we aren't spending any of our time doing repetitive tasks that we know that we can have technology accomplish for us. So we want to be as employee-facing and employee-focused as much of our day as possible. And that's really where automation and robotics comes into play. We started our automation process, like I said, about 10 years ago, using a product called OnBase, which we're using that to manage our content and how that content is flowing through our HR department. So just to break that down a little bit further, essentially what we did is we started by first digitizing our filing cabinets. When we talk about content within HR, a significant portion of that content is our employee records, right? Many of you maybe even still have those tall filing cabinets in your offices, and they've got the color-coded hanging folders like we're seeing in this picture here. There are a lot of inefficiencies, as you know, with this method of storing your data, and that's efficiencies we were able to resolve with getting these files digitized in that OnBase solution. And then second, we created automated processes for the initial and end stages of our hire to retire life cycle. So you'll see here we have our new hire coming into the organization and completing documents. Think about things like their I-9, benefit enrollment forms, employment agreements, and those documents are automatically going into that OnBase content management system. And then in the same light, we have an individual who's leaving the organization who also has a significant number of documents that are tied with that process through retirement and through departure. So think about things like COBRA documents or maybe termination agreements. And those are also automatically going into that content management system. So that right there was really the base and the foundation that we started to build from. So we were digitizing employee records, automating onboarding, and automating retirement or departures. From that initial project, we were absolutely hooked. We've expanded our solution to include things like our applicant tracking system or ATS. We have a performance management system, which internally we call that our quarterly check-in process. A compliance management system, and that process is managing our legal documents. So think about things like your employee handbook. We have a document retention process, and that's really taking care of removing documents once they've hit that important retention date. Electronic I-9s. This is actually our newest automation and the one that brought us to a completely paperless process within HR. This is managing the process of both the employee and the HR professional's interaction with that important legal document. And then we do have a new hire survey process, which is a flow of providing new hires with questions to rank their experience during their first 90 days of employment. Along with all of these automations, we also have automatic notifications for all of them. And that's really taking us out of the business of following up with people who haven't completed a task. We also have reporting for all of these automations that it's allowing us to make decisions based on real data. Okay, so I want you to take a minute and think about your hire to retire life cycle. Think about that first initial connection with a candidate through their entire candidate experience, through their selection, their onboarding, through the entire employee experience, and through the retirement or departure process. Just like Navient, I'm sure you can think of a lot of repeatable manual processes during that life cycle. Here's a list of some other common applications for robotics in HR. What about resume screening and your candidate shortlisting process? Maybe your applicant tracking system is already doing some of that elimination for you, but are there parts of that process that you're still manually performing? I'll actually be sharing our real life example of how Navient uses a robot in this particular part of our process. What about offer letters, employment agreements, background checking? Are there manual or repetitive tasks that you're executing with the administration of those documents and processes? The new hire setup and onboarding process. These processes typically have a lot of tasks associated with them, and they usually include folks in many different departments relying at least some manual processes. What about development and training? Travel and expense management, or maybe it's even employee data management. How about some portions of the payroll process that affect HR? Think about your benefit processes. What about employee surveys, or maybe it's your stay interviews? So there are a lot of areas where you can utilize these technologies to get you out of that processing business and into recruiting and retaining the best talent, which is what it all comes back to. And it does continue to be our biggest challenge as HR professionals. Okay, so let's dig into an example of how we've implemented robotics at Navient in HR. So we're using a tool in our recruiting process. It's called the Culture Index. This is a web admin portal, and you can see that on the screen here. This tool is a part of our process in just matching candidates to positions that best match their natural abilities to the open positions that we have. Other organizations, you may use similar tools that measure skills or attributes to help screen your candidates. So we're going to bring our stick figure candidate back here, and they're using a link to access the Culture Index candidate site where they're completing the survey. The survey results then generate a report, and then that report is available to us on the back end in the admin portal. So every day, someone on our HR team will go out to the admin portal and they perform a search for the candidate based on their email address or their name. They'd open the report and then they print it to a PDF and they save it to their desktop. Then they would go into our applicant tracking system and do another search there for the candidate based on their email address or based on their name, and go through a process to bring that report from Culture Index into the candidate package in our applicant tracking system. Now, let's talk a little bit about exceptions and challenges and how we walked through those and addressed each one of them. One challenge that we identified really early on is that admin portal of the Culture Index site, it doesn't have the ability to automatically extract those data reports about the candidate out of the site. And so that's why we were PDFing them. The reports, they're a really important part of that candidate package, and we wanted to make sure that we have them tracked along with the rest of their application materials, and then also available to various users along the way. And if possible, we wanted to have that happen automatically. So that's when we started to explore the idea of using a robot to automate this process. Our second challenge came up as we considered the time it takes to perform these tasks manually. It only takes one person 30 minutes a day. So we're kind of thinking, is it worth spending time to automate this process? Well, we broke it down. So to evaluate the time savings, we considered that we have one person and it takes them 30 minutes, 5 days a week on this task. That's the time that it takes them to log into the Culture Index site and into the applicant tracking system. They're doing kind of that dual search for the candidate. They're generating a report. They're saving it to a file share, and then they're going through a process to get it added into the applicant tracking system. And they're doing that multiple times a day for multiple candidates. These calculations give us 150 minutes a week, which is 7,800 minutes a year, which calculates to 16.25 days per year. That is over 16 days a year that this individual is spending heads down at their computer that they could absolutely be heads up in front of a candidate or an employee. For an organization our size, there is real value in this. Just think about, what if we identified 3 other similar areas that we were able to automate? Now we're looking at 65 days a year. Or maybe at your organization, it's larger and you're handling more candidates. Then what do those numbers start to look like for you? And then the third challenge that we needed to overcome in our buy-in to the process was the exceptions that occur. When we're in the Culture Index site, sometimes the name, it's a common name. So like Miller, if I did a search for Miller, I'm probably going to get multiple results. When we have an individual doing the processing, they know to go look for maybe a matching first name or an email address. Or what if we start our search by email address and the candidate used a different email address in the applicant tracking system and then another email address when they were logged into Culture Index? Well, we have a person that's able to identify those differences and then pick out the right candidate from the list. So we posed that challenge to one of the RPA team specialists, and they had a great response. What we needed to do was train the robot how to handle these exceptions. So right now, our robot is looking for multiple data points, and then we set those in a priority order just to make sure that the robot is identifying candidates in the same manner that our HR professional would have. So we were feeling pretty confident at this point about our implementation and moving forward with our automation of this part of our process. Our process for implementation, it took us about, I would say, 8 hours collectively with our HR team. We spent some time with an RPA technology specialist, just talking through how are we manually performing these tasks, and then showing those exceptions that come up and how do we handle those. Then that specialist took that data back and they created what our design was going to look like. Then we met with them again, and they showed us the design and talked through anything else that maybe came up as they were creating the design or things that we had forgotten to share with them. We ran some tests through the system, and then it was time to go live and just sit back and relax. No, just kidding. It was time to find an employee who needs to connect and talk about their career path. All right, so now it's time to see our robot in action. So here you're going to see the robot is logging into the Culture Index site. Once they get in here, they're going to click into the part of the site where the candidate records are stored. They're going to search at the top by an email address, and they're finding the candidate that matches. So they're generating this report. It's saving the report then as a PDF, just like we would have, out to a file share site. And then it brings you back into the Culture Index. So this is replicating that same process. Pretty cool, right? So this was slowed down, but the robot is actually doing this process in just a matter of seconds. So this has definitely been a really beneficial automation project for us here at Navient. I wanted to share then as we wrap up some of what we've gained by implementing this single automation. Time, of course, it's that 16 days per year. In turn, a transformed focus from that heads down, task oriented to being more candidate and employee facing. Reliability, that we're not relying on a person who maybe they're sick a day or they get busy with some other tasks and they're not able to get logged into the system. And then reporting capabilities to make sure that we're making decisions based on real data. And this list certainly continues to grow as we implement more and more automation technologies in HR. Well, I've shared a lot today, and hopefully giving this one example has helped to show you a specific area that can be automated within an HR process. With that, I'd like to open the floor for a few questions as it looks like we still have a bit of time. So if you have any questions, you can just type those right into the chat. All right, and it looks like we've got some coming in here. All right, we've got our first question. So it's, what is your next automation? Yeah, that's a great question. I'm always looking for new ways to automate in different parts of our process in HR that we're able to automate that really take us away from executing tasks all day and get us back in front of our candidates and our employees. Specifically, I've been thinking about our next automation, looking into reporting capabilities with robotics. I'd love to have utilize our HR robot to pull data from multiple different applications and see what type of comprehensive dashboard we're able to create so that we're using data to make decisions on what's working within the initiatives that we're working on and where we maybe need to make some improvements. So yeah, that's a great question. All right. Oh, and another question coming in here. Okay, so asking if I can talk about how did I get comfortable with the idea of RPA for our secure data. So how do we get comfortable with the idea of RPA for our secure data? Yeah, I mean, that's a really valid question, you know, with all of the secure data that we're working with within HR. First, I guess I would say that, you know, we're working with industry leading technologies that handle the type of data that we use in HR. As well as other really secure departments and industries. So it certainly isn't unique to us. And I know that someone in sales or in the technology teams would probably have a much more exacting answer as to the types of protection protocols that these technologies are utilizing. So if that's something that's preventing you from moving forward with automation, I would encourage you to ask that question of someone from the Navient team, and certainly they could get you a more exacting answer. The other piece that I'll just add to that is my challenge to you and what I've really discovered as a major benefit in automating our processes and digitizing our documents. And that's the ability to provide more security, auditability access, and ensure document retention, which I would say is a much stronger solution in a process automation technology than it is in a paper form. So yeah, another great question, guys. All right, here comes another question. I don't have a lot of automation, or maybe you don't have any automation, and how would I even get started? So I would point you back to what we had, or what I talked about earlier about, you know, for us, it was digitizing our filing cabinets, creating workflows, process automation workflows for both the onboarding and the departure processes. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but I think just finding some foundational documents and some foundational processes that are core to your HR team that would really be a big win in getting your automation started. I guess I'll say as well that, we work with process consultants here at Navient anytime we're looking to start a new automation. And there's a huge benefit to that, to being able to sit down and explain to them, this is how we currently do things in a really manual way, and then have them help to guide us into what would be the most efficient way to accomplish that process. So yeah, another good question. All right. Well, with that said, I think we're getting pretty close to time. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. I know that there are a few questions that I didn't get to, but we can certainly note those down and reach out to you individually to make sure that you get the information that you need. I have put my contact information up on this last slide, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to take that down. I'm always interested in connecting with HR professionals on automation, so please do feel free to reach out if anything that I've shared today has sparked an interest and you want to just talk maybe a little bit further about that. Otherwise, have a wonderful day and best of luck to all of you in your recruitment, retention, and development efforts.